was 30th of May 2022. I was in a plane in Amsterdam, Schiphol, flying to Alexandria. Most likely one of the most important meetings I ever had in my life. Having worked on an ecological restoration project in Egypt and was flying to a review of all Egyptian scientists for the first time. And a friend of mine told me, Ties, you gotta listen to a podcast, 13 minutes to the moon. It's actually describing the landing on the moon, the descent, the last 13 minutes. And I was amazed that 400,000 people were working together. Somebody had a vision, we're gonna land on the moon, and we did it. We all worked together and we could do something which we thought wasn't impossible, or was impossible. And I was flying there because I was gonna tell the Egyptians we were going to regreen a desert. And the funny thing is, landing on the moon was a very complex thing. Restoring ecosystems is in principle not that difficult. We know what to do. The thing is, it's lots of hard work and working together. And when I was watching, listening, but seeing the picture of it, I had Earthrise, which you see at the back of me. And the Apollo program made us realize that we live on a planet in a very tiny skin around it. And it's very, very vulnerable. We know things are changing, but for some reason, we don't really do something. But if you start understanding ecological restoration, we might know what we need to do. We just got to start with it. I'm Ties van Hoeven, studied in Delft, coastal morphology. And my parents always took me out to nature. I normally say they're a bit like hippies. And their religion was nature. So I sailed around, and you see me here fishing little crabs and fishes when I was young, walking through the forest in the winters. And by doing it, they always learned me to be with nature. We are part of nature. And they also, when we were sailing in the Eastern Scheldt Barrier, which you see here at the back of me, they created a flood protection. Luckily, they kept it open for the ecosystem. But I have seen in my whole youth the ecosystem changing, not having a clue what later on I would do with it. But they imprinted something in me. And throughout the last 6 years of my life, I started to understand that you have to go out there. So whenever you have children or yourself, go out there and feel it and be there. Because for some reason, she holds many of the answers to the problems we're facing currently. My grandfather actually told me, please go into the dredging. You can travel around the world. You can see the world. So that's what I did. Started to study in Delft, not the most nature university, let's put it like this. We like to engineer the world. And normally I would say now, I'm luckily, a palm tree was in the name, but I used to be the design manager of one of these palm tree islands in Dubai, which is completely the other way of the world I'm currently living in. It all goes about money. It all goes about lively or building houses and offices. But what I did learn was sometimes in the Western world, and for sure in the Netherlands, we want to know everything sure, what we do, and then we can start with it. That's why we currently don't do really anything on the problems we're facing. But there I did it differently. So these, we want houses, we want beaches, let's build a whole structure. You see the dredging vessels in the picture underneath. With big machines, we could move Earth massively. Didn't really thought about the nature, but what I learned there is we can do big things if we want to do it. And lots of the destructive industries currently out there, if we're able to change their purpose, they can become part of the solution. And what I started to understand, whatever we're going to do next, let us all do it together. Let us not say certain industries cannot play a role, because if we do it, we keep them alive and in the same purpose. But let us try to see if we can change the purpose of all, to get like a collaborative vision, to really start doing something. It was along this route, I started to work with a dredging company. My sister started to work with Greenpeace, and I told her, yeah, no, I will work with the contractors and try to re-green them out, from the inside out. Not having a clue what I would do, but I promised my sister. So for some reason, she already changed a little bit my purpose. And I started by building ports or breakwaters. I started to digest and understand a little bit more step by step on ecosystems. And why don't we use aquatic ecosystems to make designs cheaper? Along that route, I met John Liu. And John Liu said this: if you're going to think about large-scale ecological regeneration, come with me, travel around. And I went with him to the Lus Plateau. It completely changed my life for a couple of reasons. The people that live there now are happy, proud on their ancient culture, and really proud on what they're achieving. So I saw very happy people. Not only that, when I was traveling around there as a dredger, I saw lots of earth moving. So, hey, wait a minute. This might be one of these purposes. If we change it, we can really do something positively. And I never forget it. He said to me, this: if we can restore large-scale damaged ecosystems, why don't we do it? And I'm like, still a little bit naive. Yeah, man, why don't we do it? And I met John Liu via the Sinai. It was 19 January 2016. I was driving back from Antwerp to my hometown, Den Bosch. And I got a phone call. And I was known a little bit in this dredging company that I had some creative ideas. And it was Malik Boekeboes that called me. He was the former project manager of the Suez Canal, which if you can see it out there. They just dredged it, and on the celebration of finishing the Suez Canal, one of the governmental people, an admiral, came up to him and said, listen, we got a big problem after the Arabic Spring, and the situation in the Sinai itself is getting worse and worse. If you look carefully on top, you see a big lagoon on the Mediterranean coast, and it would be known throughout history as having the best fish of the Mediterranean, but the fish was disappearing. The financial crisis hit the world. Food got more expensive. Egypt needed to get more food. Overfishing, it's the whole story. Not only that, the lake is step by step sedimentating, so it's disappearing. So the people that are there don't have a future perspective. So I cannot really blame them to travel up to places where there's a better life. And Malik called me, and normally I was bashing clients, making money, not really for myself. So it also felt a little bit stupid. And Malik said to me, Thies, listen, do you really think we can do something? I said, well, for the funny thing is, I sailed with my parents lots in the Eastern Scheldt. So I believe, is the lagoon very salt? Yeah, it's very salt. I said, okay, man, let's open the door to the tides. He said, whatever, dude. You really think it? Yeah, I think I got something. So I got back home. Really didn't know where the Sinai was. So I looked it up on Google Earth. I think now I'm in the top 3 of people watching the Sinai in Google Earth. But anyway, it's a little bit my life. And I looked at it, and what I also saw, next to the lagoon, and the size of her, of 600 square kilometers, I saw this dried up river system. And normally I'm too stupid to become a scientist, but I like calculations. So what I saw there was a whole scarfed river system in the desert. So I'm like, wait a minute, isn't it strange? We have a rising temperature, so there's more water vapor in the atmosphere. There's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So I'm like, hey, let's regreen it. Because what we figured out, there were lots of marine sediments in this lagoon, which were actually the indigenous sediments which used to be on the desert. So if there is a river system, if we have the materials, has it been ever green? Which was funny because I thought studying in Delft I knew everything, which was clearly not the case. But I started to Google, wait a minute, she has been green many times and become a desert many times. And when I was reading the scientific explanation why she became a desert and not, it didn't really got me. They talk about the wobble of the axis of the Earth. But the funny thing is, the last time she became a desert, approximately 10,000 years ago, it happened in 100 to 200 years. Completely not lined up with the scale of the wobble of the axis of the Earth, which is 22,500 years. So I'm like, whoa, that's weird. That if I hear people talk about we live with too many people on this planet, I'm like, how are we going to convince all of those people that we are with too much? So how are you going to motivate people to change? Whereas not that long ago, approximately a quarter of our lands on the planet is a desert. It used to be green. It used to have hippos, used to have giraffes. Man, it could be a fertile land. Why do we accept it? So if it was that case, what would be most likely the reason that there was still rain. So what we started to understand, and here you see a cross-section of the Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Peninsula is most likely the most complete, smallest watershed in the world. She has mountains at the back, at the south, of above 2,700 meters, 26, sorry. And she's kind of a triangular in shape. And if you put a cross-section through it, and when you start to digest how a water cycle works, you start to understand that approximately 2/3 of all the moisture required for rain on land is evaporating on the ocean. And if there is a vegetation cover with animals and everything, nutrients are recycled, water are recycled, leaves are there, create microclimates, hold water. So if the sun comes up, the water is there to evaporate, so it reduces the heat. So it reduces the heat, you add moisture, so you're rapidly going to reduce your cloud condensation level. And if you reach 100% relative humidity, condensation will happen. The air implodes. It gives warmth on the higher level, and you get this cauliflower-shaped clouds. And the droplet is recycling and continuing, growing and growing. Till she's big enough, gravity will win. And if gravity will win, I came from Delft, you have a drag force. So you're changing the wind. So I was making all these drawings like, wait a minute, you're changing the winds. Wow. Could it be that Sinai, which has the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean at the back, if she would be functional like this, that she would push, in the good seasons, bring rain towards the Mediterranean, towards the Gulf of Aqaba, to Israel, Mesopotamia? Could it be that ecology and functional watershed can completely change our regional climate? Now a little bit up to there, and there I highlighted it. These are the encatchment basins of the world. And the light blue area is actually where you see that in the old days, it's all based upon sediment core drillings. 60 to 70% of the evaporation of the Mediterranean would fall down in that light blue area. And when you see the black line in between the different colleges, simply said, there are mountains high enough to separate weather systems. Because the higher you get, the cooler the air, the quicker the condensation, she starts to fall, and they separate weather systems. There used to be a continental divide on the Sinai. So, wow, if I now see lots of air leaking over the Sinai into the Red Sea, if we create a functional watershed there, the water would flow back, or the rain would go back to the Nile. Wow. Could it be that if we start thinking globally, thinking on how ecology feeds our weather, that we can restore certain things? For sure, with the destructive capabilities we have developed, we can. The funny thing is, it's not purely technical here, I have to say. It's not difficult if we could change that purpose of the industry to start doing it. Because currently, it's like this. There's no vegetation, so there's no water. So as the sun comes up, she heats up this land massively. You got the thermal flows. You got a low pressure. So what you see here is a very rapid wind developing during the day, and really like a vacuum cleaner, sucking out that moisture out of the Indian Ocean and dropping it back into there. If you look back on the historical facts around this area, yes, it were people, like so often, that destroyed the ecosystem to grow as a society. And if you start looking at it on the bigger map, here you can see that 26% of the Earth being a desert. And the funny thing is, you also see all the registered cyclones and typhoons in our history when we start registering. So what you see is a complete disturbed water vapor distribution. We have on many areas way too much water, and on lots of areas not enough. But could it be, if we start collaborating and start focusing together, also with the industries, fully based on the indigenous knowledge and cultures out there, that we could stop this distribution of the water vapor, and we could actually start building a much larger livable Earth than before. That's the whole plan we're now working on and pretty close to starting it up. And the funny thing is, lots of the times, I have discussions with people saying, yeah, but can we as humans restore an ecosystem? Are we not manipulating it? And the funny thing is, if I have these discussions, I'm like, wait a minute, you're part of nature. It's nature letting us do this. And we're not going to do it alone. We have to come together as a species, but we have to start understanding we're part of an organic family. If we're going to restore the wetlands around by the wheel, here you see it, it's the biggest bird migration route the planet ever had. It's the birds will come. They will pick out seeds from all over the world and will build the new biodiversity to come. We're not going to restore what they used to be there, because sadly said, we destroyed it so much, it will never come back as what it used to be. But we can support all of life to build a new ecosystem, which is robust to the future. So if we start to understand, and this is what I felt myself on little projects I'm doing here in the Netherlands, if you start working with ecological regeneration, you will see that nature will help you, and you will see that her pace of recovery is way stronger than we ever thought. And by doing it, and also the whole social part, I started to myself also look back at history and try to learn from it. And the funny thing is, if you start looking back at history, almost all big civilizations were created on locations where there was an abundance of nature, where there was an abundance of food, where there was still rain, so there was drinking water. The other plot you see here is the SDGs. A little bit like a pyramid, I'm now saying, because I'm working in Egypt, but you see how she's built up. We have to start understanding everywhere on this planet that we have to restore our biosphere. Nature will never give you the most efficient answer to one problem, but it gives you the answer to all the problems. If we are building our ecosystem, the same for the Netherlands, you can build your food security, your water security for the future. And the only thing I want to give you along, Google it a little bit. All of us can make weather. It's just our organic family. If we restore ecosystems, it will feed the organic matter on the topsoils. So if it rains hard, the water is retained, the water will infiltrate. If there's water available, you're directly changing the weather on a day. And if you sum all the weathers of a year, you will get to climate. It's not that difficult. It's just a matter of us, as a species, trying to finally understand now the only way out is working together as a species and working together on a livable planet. And this would be my last phrase, Salam alaikum. We come in peace. Let's hopefully in this weird moment in time come together and work together on a peaceful future. Thank you.
Bravo.